Senator Coons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Edgar, as Deputy Homeland Security Secretary at the time, and now as a nominee to be our ambassador to El Salvador, did you have concerns about what was happening to the 250 Venezuelans that you helped deport to CECOT, given the widespread accusations of gross human rights violations by the Bukele government?
Microphone.
Sorry. No, thank you, Senator. No, I did not have concerns. I think that, when we were going through the process of, the deportations, President Trump has made very clear that we need to make sure that we're operating on really kind of three of his campaign promises. Number one, secure the border. Number two, effective and efficient deportations, and three, for efficient government. So when it came to CECOT, the pictures that you're showing in the background and that view, that is a prison that is ran by El Salvador, not the United States.
Does the United States have no obligation for the treatment of those who we deport to third countries?
Well, I think if you go through, obviously we go through a safe and fair assessment, just like when we set up with the State Department. The State Department really kind of helps us put together what I'll call safe third countries, and the agreement that we had with El Salvador. From a DHS perspective, as the COO, I didn't get directly involved with the details of setting up that agreement.
You're familiar with the Convention Against Torture?
I am. And
widespread allegations that President Bukele, while he has accomplished dramatic reductions in violent crime, has done so through the detention of nearly 100,000 of his own citizens, the undue influence on the Supreme Court, an illegal second term, repression of human rights by journalists, human rights advocates, frankly, a violation of the rule of law at virtually every level. Are you aware of those allegations against the Bukele government?
I'm aware of the allegations that I read, but I would just say that they're allegations, right? I think if confirmed as the ambassador for El Salvador, I'll keep an open mind and being able to make sure that I'm aware. I use the data. I'll work with the committee in the form of an oversight so that we can go through and make sure that they're there. The one thing I would say to kind of counter that is that I think that El Salvador has done a tremendous job in their environment to be able to bring safety to 98% of their citizens. They were in a situation, unprecedented gang violence, and a really nasty place. And right now, you see it in their elections, you see it in the people and the turnout and the approval ratings that the people of El Salvador are supportive of what that current administration is doing. And the United States and President Trump backs the administration of El Salvador.
Well, let's be clear, Mr. Edgar. At the Department of Homeland Security, as I said to your secretary in a hearing just this week, you have, and I have, we all have, obligations to protect American citizens, to keep them safe, but to do so in a way that is efficient and legal and humane and constitutional. We have to respect the rule of law. We can make our country safer by simply snatching off the streets, using masked, nameless agents, people who we suspect of being bad folks, and executing them. There was a period of time in the Philippines where that was the practice of the former government. There is a period now in El Salvador where that's the practice of the government. I agree we need to keep the American people safe. I profoundly disagree with doing so in a way that violates the fundamental rights of Americans. And it sends a message to the rest of the world about what we stand for when we forcibly deport hundreds of people, many with no criminal record, to a country that has a demonstrated human rights record that is abysmal. I am the co-chair of the Human Rights Caucus, along with Senator Tillis. I'm gravely concerned by the significant human rights in El Salvador, and frankly by your answer that, what matters is meeting the president's campaign promises, and it's popular, so who cares about the consequences for the people who were sent there? I also want to know about your role in developing the ICE plan for detaining people in our country in warehouses that Senator Shaheen just referenced. What was your role in developing and carrying out this plan?
Yeah, thank you, Senator. My role at DHS is as the Chief Operating Officer. A big part of my role is the fiscal management of what happens at DHS. So at any given time, 3 budgets are in place, closing out 25, doing 26, looking at 27. Within one big, beautiful bill, as you know, there was money in there for these types of warehouse operations. My role in that process was to facilitate with the 3 main components of DHS, ICE, CBP, and the Coast Guard, which got a pretty big allocation, the one big beautiful bill, work with legislature with the appropriations and with OMB to make sure spend plans and all the administrative parts are in place. So when it came to the tactical execution of what locations are they going to, where are we going to be, how are we going to use that, Secretary Nome and myself really relied on the leadership of ICE who would have that responsibility.
So in the process of purchasing warehouses throughout the United States, including in my neighboring state, Pennsylvania, potentially in her state, New Hampshire, in states like Mississippi, where the senator has pushed back hard on it, should we have concern that the standards in those warehouses will be comparable to CECOT in El Salvador?
No, sir. You shouldn't have any concern. We have a unified standard that we apply to all facilities for ICE facilities. You know, we have two main vendors at ICE, Geo and CoreCivic, and those types of standards are national, many times better than the standards that we actually have in county and local jails. So that is the standard that we've given out, that they've went to put these out to bid, and that's the standard they would be held to.
Do you think that members of Congress ought to be able to come and inspect the conditions in facilities, particularly in our own states or districts?
I think that there is a process that you guys are required to go through, and I think that has been a point of contention with DHS, and whether you guys just show up at the door or whether you give us a little bit of a heads up. But I think Secretary Nome and the administration has been willing to work with you guys.
Let me just reference one last thing. I know I'm over my time. You mentioned in your testimony that you've been particularly focused on institutional integrity at the Department of Homeland Security. The Inspector General for DHS recently sent a letter to Congress detailing how DHS has, and this is a quote, systematically obstructed its work to conduct independent oversight for several months. Many of the IG's requests and a lot of this allegation of systemic obstruction occurred while you were serving as number 2 in charge of operations. What's your response to these allegations, sir?
My response to that is I had a great relationship with the Inspector General. He came in under Trump 1. Going through the process, I think from, I guess, just my personal perspective is the bigger picture. At any given time, there's probably 700 to 800 open IG assessments going on at any time at DHS. So there's no doubt that the one that has been highlighted is the one that has got contention, but I would not over-amplify or magnify the issue of one or two of the things that was caught up in an article as being the way that it is. There's oversight within Homeland Security, so I'm sure that there'll be committee meetings on evaluating that. And, and I think, I think I would just be careful to not make a determination by what you see in the press.
What do you think the IG meant by systematically obstructed, if this is someone you've worked well with and have a constructive relationship with?
Well, I think there's a lot of different things that were going on at DHS as we kind of came in. You know, it's a large organization, first of all, 23 components, $105 billion budget. Second thing is that at the very beginning, there was a bunch of stuff going on with Doge, if you remember, where kind of, and my job in that was a little bit kind of counter, is I realized by being the CFO how important it was to make sure that we maintained the work that had to be done by the authorities given by Congress in the money. And so we had to be careful that we weren't cutting so much that we were kind of getting out and having a problem. And so the systematic part of the IG is that he's going through, he was going through a process of really trying to navigate system access for stuff and a lot of confusion that was happening in the very beginning. But I think in the long run, Secretary Nome and her front office have done a good job to start to work and get that back on track.
Thank you for your answers. I'm going to let my colleagues question, but I have to say I'm really troubled by your responses to my questions about CECOT and about your views of the government of El Salvador. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.